Hello, everybody. Facilities planning and location is what we are going to discuss in today's presentation. We will decide upon what are the factors to be kept in mind while planning location of a factory, probably a production base, and the layout thereby. So, simple. This will form the very crux of this presentation. How do we proceed out here? We will be talking about a brief introduction. What is the importance of facilities planning and location? What are the objectives, as in what are the reasons behind those location decisions on this location planning and the facilities layout? The factors affecting the layout selection thereby. And then this is most important where we'll talk about the types of plant layout in terms of product, in terms of process, or let's say the cellular layout that goes around it. Definitely, yes, we'll sign off this particular presentation with the facility location and the reasons behind to choose one. Yes, plant layout planning includes designing, with respect to the physical locations, the economic activity centers in the facilities. Now, what are the economic activities? Let's say the transportation is availability or not. Transportation of raw material, transportation of finished goods, availability of manpower. It is all forms the crux of an economic activity of a region. Economic activity center is an activity of occupying space. The objective of plant layout planning is more effective workflow at a facility, allowing workers and equipment being more producive and productive. Now, if there are ample amount of laborers present in the vicinity where the plant has been located, nothing can go wrong around there, right? So that is what we need to understand. That means we can also hammer down the cost in terms of employee salaries are concerned. If ample amount of raw material is within the vicinity of plant location, that means we can hammer down the cost as far as resources are concerned, as in raw material. Facility layout techniques are applying in case where several physical means have been located. So if we can have a lot of manpower, a lot of physical resources that has been there, we can make the show. So objective is very simple, absolutely simple for plant layout or relayout as in compared to the situation of the company, as this we said so. Yes, to carry out an appropriate plant layout, what do we look into forward to? First and foremost, we are looking into the space requirements. Let's say cost per uh, meter squares in a mall, accessibility, privacy of an office, and so on and so forth. To make a decisions about layout planning, we require four different questions, and these are the questions that needs to be answered. If the questions are answered in a positive fashion, and they will determine, or should I say, give reasons to establish a plant in a particular position. So, which centers do we consider? First and foremost thing, there has to be alternatives, a number of alternatives available for you. In case you don't have any alternatives, do you think there is a question to be for asked? Probably you are forced to choose a plant location if there's only one place to build a plant. How much space and capacity is required for each center depends upon the amount of business that we are generating. In terms of sales, in terms of revenue, in terms of production, is there enough space where productivity may be reduced or inventory can be stored? Too much space is too expensive, and probably it affects the productivity in a negative fashion. So how must space be configured at each center? Space quantity, shape, and elements of the work centers are related to each other. Where should each centers be located within the facility? And this is where the layout plays a major role. So where are the receiving bays? Where are the finished product bay? Where the assembly line? What are we looking into it? So the question remains, which centers do we have to consider? How much space is required? And how the space can be configured in each center? Before we move on to the ample layout fashions for the facility thereby. So yes, the plant layout starts at aggregate level, at the macro level that we are talking around it. If it is the macro level, we know how many units to be produced, or we know what are the customers' footfall are going to be. Taking this into account to form a different department. As soon as we get into the details, that different issues arises. The original configuration may be changed through a feedback process altogether. Remember, most, if not all of them, layout are designed properly for the initial conditions of the business. Initially, every businesses would like to initiate with keeping the present scenario in mind, but we often forget that the volume of the business can enhance by leaps and bounds. So that is what we need to go around it. So we should have forward-looking orientations. We should be making enough allocations for adaptability, both in terms of internal changes and external change. A re-layout. Remember, a re-layout may be necessary in case the business goes for a boom or otherwise. So the reasons for re-layout are three things. Why? Because there is a change in production volume. There is an increase in production volume, or let's say there are new technology has been incorporated. Probably you can cramp up the space or produce more goods at with a little space because of the technology utilizations, or probably we are changing the business product altogether. So we need there are three reasons for a layout changes. One is production volume, if there are any changes around it. Second is process or technologies, if there are any changes around it. And the ultimate thing is the product, if we are going to change the product all the way. So the frequency of the layout will depend on the requirement of the process thereby. Let us come to the part of introduction. Symptom that allows to detect the layout or need for layout. If you look into the pictures, you see the pictures out here, it looks very cramped and very disturbing, right? As in, I cannot access any of the products without disturbing n numbers of products altogether. Similarly, something which can goes around as on when on basis, we talk it around towards this thing. We need to go around every now and then. Probably we'll talk some point of time. We will need to know around this is where the crux of material, everything is going haphazard. There are no linearity at all in this particular fashion. So yes, congestions or bad utilization of space, excessive stock in the process in the facility, long distance in workflow process as the case might be, simultaneous bottlenecks, workstation with idle time, qualified workers carrying too simple of solutions or too simple an operation, labor anxiety, discomfort. Probably people are not very comfortable working around here. Accident prone area happens around it, and difficulties in the controlling and personal process. Now, this has been implicated through the pic that I have shown it to you. One, via the graph, which shows none of the positions are in a linear mode that goes around it as has been taken care of. You look at it goes haphazard, everything goes haphazard. And the other one is a real pick for you to give an understanding how congested or bad utilization of space flows happens. Why does accident happen in the very first place? So facility layout definition. Let's say what did in Hiragu said stated in 1997. A good facility is an arrangement of everything needed for production of goods and services. A facility is an entity that facilitates the performance of any job. It may be a machine, it may be a work center, it can be a manufacturing cell, it can be a machine shop, a department, a warehouse, whatever you say so. It happens, and Hiragu has already said it way back in 1997. The layout design generally depends on the product variety and the production volume. Four types of organizations are referred, namely the fixed product layout, process layout, product layout, and cellular layout. We will be talking about these four different layout, which been stated way back in 1996 by Delver in the subsequent slide. So the layout design is very important. If you look into the pictograph which has been mentioned out here as such, you see the number of products. See, the number of product means the more the number of products, the complexity would be absolutely increased by leaps and bounds. And the less number of product, there would be less of a complexity. It is all about simplicity and the number of produce that goes around it. So when the less number of products and the quantity is lost, it's a fixed position. But as the quantity goes around, the product layout takes place, as in the layout of the firm facilities is to be considered. But when it is in the middle of the range, it's a mixed layout kind of scenario. And when we are looking at a number of products and the quantity is not very huge, so we are looking into the process layout as been stated out there. So the objectives of plant layout, what are they? The main objective, first and foremost thing is the satisfactions or safety and security of the employees working in the plant. Any accident or misfortune things happening in the facility is a wrongdoing of the management, and no wonder no management, no company would like that to happen onto their premises. So what are we looking into it? It's a sense of unity, absolutely. Teamwork needs to be cared for. The feeling of being a unit, pursuing the same objective. Minimum movement of people, probably giving them accurate time, places, material, resources thereby. The safety we are talking around it, yes, this is of prime importance. It should not be an accident prone area. Flexibility in designing the plant layout as the case might be. We are looking for the flexibility at the same time. So what are we looking at it? We are looking at sense of unity, having a sense of teamwork, camaraderie within the organizations, the manpower. Minimum movement of people. People are restricted within the space so that they can do their work jolt free, guilt free, absolutely guilt free. Yes, safety is of primal importance. Everybody must feel safe and secure in their work environment. Flexibility at the same time. Designing the plant layout, taking into account the changes in the short and the medium term services. Thereby, objective of plant layout. The main objective is to reduce congestion. The main objective is to reduce the interference of work because of the flow of the people and so on and so forth. So, how do we reduce congestions? Number one is to keep the areas clean, eliminate the unnecessary occupied areas, probably reducing the administrative and indirect workflow. So, the workflow should be seamless and it should be very smooth. There should be improvement in terms of supervisions, in terms of control, in terms of any unforeseen accident or activities. It can be very easily manipulated or adapted to the changing condition. So that is what the better utilization of workforce, equipment and services is considered. Remember, material handling and wastages are of prime importance. The stock that we are producing, the inventory that we are keeping, after producing a good stock, it should not turn up because of wrong inventory placement and keeping. So that is what we are looking into it as in the objectives of the plant layout is concerned. Remember, layout wise, we are looking for an simple layout that I will talk around it in this particular presentation. Right now we will be only looking at the plant layout, facilities layout, how well they are adapted and how do they impact the business thereby. Remember, a good layout means effective utilizations of the operation and an ease of production process altogether. So that is what are the objectives and the factors layout. We'll talk about the product process layout, both kind of layout that is of utmost importance. Some companies in particular industry might opt for a product layout, whereas some other companies might offer a process layout. It depends on the company paradigm. I will just introduce to the audience of this videos as to both the product and the process layout slowly and steadily. Now, keeping in mind the factors that affect the plant location, the question is that what are we looking into it? The end all is they are counting a balance between characteristic and consideration of all factors. Remember, all factors that impacts a plant layout in terms of maximum advantages. The factors affecting plant layout can be grouped into 8 categories, and these are the categories that we will be explaining in the subsequent 5 slides, right? What are they? We are talking of materials in terms of machinery, in terms of labor, in terms of handling of your materials, the waiting time, the auxiliary services, the building, the future changes, or whatever we are planning for the future. Now, these are the 8 factors that needs to be kept in mind every time for all of us to understand. And based on 8 factors, we will design the plant layout thereby. Let us understand in terms of material. The layout of the productive equipment can depend upon the characteristic of the product that we are going to build upon it. Remember certain characteristics. Let's say a product like steel. Now they can have different products altogether, right? It's a cold roll steel, a hot roll steel, the TMT bars that we are looking into it. Again, a similar kind of production would be cement. A cement, we can have a variety of cement, but probably with more or less a bulk production that comes around it. But is it true for manufacturing of a car? Probably not, where a lot of assembly has to be done around. So we need to understand the productive equipment that will depend upon the characteristics of the product we manage within the facility. Main factors to be considered are shape, size, volume, weight, physical and chemical characteristics. These are the things that needs to be kept into mind every now and then. Shape, size, volume, weight. Did I say about steel? It has the chemical formulations would be there. The cement, definitely yes. But car, does it comes around it? Probably no, but there is an assembly line that comes around under the process part of it. The sequencing and order of the operation will affect the plant layout as well, being into account of variety and quantity to produce. Next is the machinery, having information about process, machinery, tools and necessary equipment, as well as the use and requirement is essential to design a correct layout. The method and time studies to improve processes are closely linked to the plant layout. This is what we are looking forward to. Regarding machinery, we have to consider the type, total available of each type, as well as the type and quantity of tools and equipment. Remember, every time we are occupying or producing for certain things or planning to produce certain things, we need to keep in account the space required, the shape, the height, the weight, the quantity, and the number of, or should I say, the type of workers also required, the risk associated with it, the requirement of the auxiliary services that comes around here. We come to the third characteristics of labor and the fourth characteristics of material in this particular slide. Labor has to be organized in the production process. Now, need to understand what kind of labor we are talking about. Is it unskilled, or is it semi-skilled, or it's fully skilled, direct labor, supervision, direct payroll, on contract, on third-party payroll. We need to understand these things every now and then before we plan it out. Environmental consideration in employee safety, light condition, ventilation, temperature, noises, etc. has to be taken into account. Process considerations are all about personal qualification, flexibility, number of workers required at a given time, as well as the type of work to be performed by them. We come into something called a material handling. Now, what are we looking at material handling? Are we looking only at the finished product? Probably yes. Are we looking at the raw material? Probably yes. But why are we overlooking waste? Even waste is a byproduct which might not be utilized, but it has been produced by the manufacturing unit also. How to manage those material, the waste, the finished product, the raw material. Everything needs to be coming under this particular consideration when we are planning a layout of a plant. So objective, minimize material handling as well as combining with other operations. When possible, eliminate unnecessary and costly movement here and there every now and then. This is everything in short. Now, what are we talking around it? Factors affecting plant movement, we will be looking at 8 categories as wasting time. What are they? If we can say so, we will be noticing that there is something called in the process or WIP or work in progress. The idea is all about understanding if we are producing a stock, is it a continuous flow of work material going on hands-on experience, or there are certain time lag behind it? If there are any time lag, it is going to cost us, right? So can we avoid such kind of costings? Can we avoid such kind of waiting periods, waiting time? Can we avoid certain hemorrhages that can happen while the flow is stops? On the other hand, material waiting to flow through the facility not always represent a cost to avoid. Probably that as a stock sometime provides safety. In this case, if it is a steel production, you require a waiting period time wherein the steel will actually cool off, right? Before it can be rolled in and probably taken into the should I say the inventory, the stock area, or to the store area as such, where it can be stored and probably gone to the Bay Area before it can be transported out altogether. So it is necessary to understand where waiting period is mandatory, where waiting period is costing the company. So we need to accordingly plan the layout. So resting time to cool down or heating up is what we keep on saying. So we come to the auxiliary services. Now, this is what we are looking at the main production area. This might be related to the labor. Why labor? Because of the accessibility to the path, fire protection, installation. Now, why if a plant doesn't have fire installation, fire protection, things around it, a small fire, a small mishap can be a catastrophic effect onto the facility. So we need to take proper precautions thereby. We need to have PPE, personal protection equipment, get given to the every individual employee or the laborer or the workers that is working around it. That is a mandatory must thing accordingly. Similarly related to the material, if there are chemical which can be uh, which are maybe flammable or which might be causing harms to materials and other materials and manpower, we should take proper precaution. Now, these are the auxiliary services that needs to be taken into account related to the machinery, the maintenance of the electrical and the water lines that comes around it. Remember, auxiliary services represent approximately one third of the space of a facility altogether. One third, did I say? It is important to have important efficient services to ensure that indirect costs are minimized, always minimized, and that can only be done with an auxiliary service, which basically gives you a buffer to a safety for the labor, safety for the material, safety to the machine, and so on and so forth in the longest of the run. So the last two things which comes into the play are the seventh and the eighth part. Seventh remains the building or the facility that we are talking about it. Can the building comprises or can be future proof? When I say future proof, there might be n numbers of activities that can be added upon it. There might be the number of footfall that you have envisioned the building to accomplish might enhance by leaps and bounds. It might increases many-fold. Can so many footfall be accommodated, and if so, how can it be? So these needs to be understood when designing the building altogether. What is the difference? What is the entrance point? What is the exit point? What are the employee entry, employee exit, customer entry, customer exit, vendor entry, vendor exit? Can we plan this thing multifold entry and exit time? This becomes an ease for our understanding. The future change. One of the main objective of the planning purpose is being flexible, always being flexible as often as possible. It is important to forecast the future change to avoid having an inefficient plant layout in a short term. Flexibility can be reached keeping the original layout as free as possible regarding fixed characteristics, allowing the adjustment to emergencies and variation of the normal processes that comes around it. We need to understand possible future extension of the facility must be taken into account as well as that facility of the production during the re-layout process as on when on fashion. So what are we looking? We are looking at the present definitely, but as we move to the futures, can we look into it? Can we be future proof altogether? This is what we are looking at now. And future means business multiplying a number of times. Future means business changing its form, shape, format, clientele, everything altogether. So can we change it, adapt it accordingly? The types of plant layout that we are looking into it. What are the various types of plant layout? There are basically four types of plant layout which we say so. One is a fixed type of plant layout where the product stays remains the same thing, the resources are more or less the same thing, and we are not going to tweak it. Let's say production of electricity with the help of a gas. Almost output is electricity, input remains your gas. In between your labor and things comes around it. So product stays, resources moves on and into it absolutely. So you have a fixed position plant layout. Then comes the product oriented plant layout. These are product oriented. It's the end product which keeps on changing. So machinery and materials are placed in the to follow the product path, as in what all products that comes around it, and there can be two three different products altogether comes around it and many more. I have only given you a reflected only three products, one, two, and three, but it can be have multiple. Remember, it is the product which counts, and accordingly, the machine and material has to be placed around it. Process layout, on the other hand, is the functional layout. Machinery is placed according to what to do. So we have clubbed together. Let's say we have assembly line out here. We have the painting division out here. We have the auxiliary division out here. So everybody is working in tandem, and then there is something called probably there is an amalgamation thereby. And last but not least is your cell layout. Now, what is cell layout? It's a hybrid layout that tries to take advantages of different layout, being in between fixed product and processes as the case might be. So this is what the product layout looks around it. See, look, the trucks is coming in and the trucks are going out. Probably, I don't say so. This can be an entry and this can be an exit, as the case might be. We have the railway yards, and coming in trucks might give you the raw materials. They are going into the production process out here before they have been packaged, and probably in the Bay Area from where they comes around it. Now, this is something, a simple depiction of a product layout. Now, types of plant layout, if you look into it, we have two types of plant layout. They are continuous, which I've just shown it to you, and then there is something called assembly line layout, which is repetitive in nature. The correct operation of the flow will be based on the line balancing exercise in order to avoid problem generated by the bottlenecks thereby. Now, this is what is which needs to be understood time and again by all of us to reflect what is the product layout plan. Plant layout is to be based on the allocation of the machine as close as to the next one. So one after the another. Now, if you have a machine out here and then we need to have another machine out here, probably the consumption of the product comes around it, and there might be an auxiliary machine that comes around here. Yes, you might have auxiliary machine which helps out the flow. So the flow is like this. The flow comes out here, and then the flow comes out here also. Absolutely. So we have the flow out here, and then the flow comes around here. So it should be as slow, as close at one another. Now, types of plant layout in terms of product oriented plant layout. The advantages are it reduces material handling services. Definitely yes. So there is a less span of time and effort being devoted to transferring of material from one place to another if it is in a plant layout thing. It's a work in process. WIP almost eliminated because it goes from one machine to another machine almost immediately. So WIP never occurs. Minimum manufacturing time it is, or should I say, the quick manufacturing takes place. Simplification of the production planning and control system that happens around it. Task simplification. Now, these are the advantages of having a plant layout based on the product oriented. Similarly, there cannot be only advantages, but possibly there might be some drawbacks. For example, there is no flexibility in this production processes, right? Absolutely, it's a cutthroat machine. One machine it imports, finish. The moment it finishes, goes to the next machine. So it's a low flexibility, or should I say low flexibility. High capital investment because it is machine oriented as per se. Every workstation is critical to the person. Remember, the lack of personnel even by one of the workstation might lead to the shutdown of the whole process altogether. So if it is one person missing, one workstation missing, and let us not say it's missing, if one workstation or work machine malfunctions, the whole process goes for a down round. And this is mostly a monotonous job that comes around it. So if you look into it, we have this other ways of production which goes around it. See the workflow out here, it comes out here, this way, that way, and this way. So we can have a workstation, a person sitting out here, a person sitting out here, a person sitting out here, a person sitting out here. Similarly, a number of people can sit at every places, right? And they can work around every now and then. What are we looking into it? We are looking into so many of a workstation where a multiple, for example, there can be only two-person who can manage this station also, this station also, and this station also. Only two-person. So because it's a very nearby in the vicinity that we are locating, it can be manned by also one person when their work job is very slow, when the business is very slow. A single person can actually man the show altogether. So that is what we are looking out here. Out here in this particular method, every person is interacted and it is a high flow frequency. That means the business is very strong and we have to keep on doing it. On the other hand, process layout, if you look into it, there would be a lot of haphazard fashion that things goes around it. Right, we can have the similar functions as the product layout. I've just taken into a consideration for your understanding. Now what is happening with it, in the trucks there's a reception and the trucks there's a boarding. Did I say so? Yes, I said, already mentioned. But look at the flow, it can go this way, it can go come out here, go to R&D, go to machine automation, grinders probably. So we have a lot of path to complete it out. See, they follow the yellow line. The yellow line goes to the from reception goes to the lathe to the R&D, R&D to the machine milling, then probably the automation of the machine, then to the grinders, probably to the assembly line, finished product, and comes around it. So we have a different path of finding and coming up with the product, and this is nothing but a process layout that we wanted to discuss it out here. Now, process layout plant is functional layout. These type of plant layers is useful when production is organized in batches of a particular product, and then the next batch of different product. So personnel and equipment to perform the same function are allocated the same area. I have already stated so in the Bay Area, in the R&D, wherever you want to go around it. The different items have to be moved from one area to another according to the sequence of the operation previously established. The variety of the product produced will lead to diversify of the flows to the facility. The variation in the production volumes from one period to the next one absolutely might lead to modification in the manufacturing quantities as well as the type of product to be produced n numbers of time out there. Now these are things that needs to be taken into consideration: the variation, the variety, the different item, the resource material, the personal, the type of plant. Now, these are things that comes into picture for process layout. This is what we are looking into it, right? So we will give you an understanding. Remember, this is been stated by SLP method by Muthar in way back in 1973, and the process flow this way: from top to down matters, from PQ analysis. We go into diagram activity relationship, definitions, analysis, synthesizes, evaluation. It's a very easy thing. If you go it slowly, you will understand what we are looking into it. We are drawing a chart, probably coming up with a flow and a functional relationship, establishing the parameters as to what are the job requirement, the space availability, and come with a space relationship which need to be adjusted, and come with project 1, project 2, project 3 as such. Probably this is what we are looking around it as far as process layout is concerned. Now comes the last segment of cellular layout. Now, if you have this functional layout, you look, I have said in the functional layout, a lot of haphazard things happen, and it can be shown. Why? Because similar resources have been placed together. If somebody is doing designing, will only have to come to this part of it only. So they have to come to the designing team to get the things done. But in group cellular level, can we reduce these anomalies altogether, these confusions altogether? Can we have a cluster which can have, see, we have a design team. For a design team, a few members have been dedicated to this particular cluster. They are all part of different design teams. They are part of a design team, but they are dedicated to a certain clusters altogether. And that is what resources are produced, similar product placed together. What is being meant by the cellular layout thereby. Now, types of plant layout as far as cellular level is considered. Remember, group of equipment, group of workers that perform a sequence of operation over multiple units of items or families of items is what we are looking into it. Look for the advantages of the product. The process layout. Product oriented layout is all about efficiency. Process oriented layout is all about flexibility that we are looking into it. Mark this word of efficiency and flexibility for your understand. For product it is efficiency, but for process it is flexibility. And grouping technologies, output remains with the same characteristics of people, same characteristics of families, same characteristics of groups, and assigning them with a machine workers for a production. Did I say about the designing team? Certain members are dedicated to for the product A, certain designing members are dedicated to product B, and so on and so forth. So we need to work on cellular technologies as such. Now we come to the last segment, excuse me, last segment of facility locations by. Now, what are the issues that we will discuss out here? We will discuss the issues of facility location and various plant location methods. I'll just give you a brief introduction as to why should we go into a certain habits, certain parameters, certain questions that needs to be answered, or probably give you an eye opening to what are the impediments that comes when we are trying to locate a position or location for a plant. First and foremost thing is the competitive imperatives that impacts the location. Why? Because either what I can do, I can be either need very close to the customer so that customers are easy to find, and for them it is an easy for them to find us, the organization. They can give their complaint, they can take the product, they can access the product, they can appreciate the company, everything at their fingertips, probably at a hand stretch. We are very much close at the vicinity of the customer. That's one way. Or what we can do, we can be very close to the raw material. Why? Because transportation of the transportation cost goes down. So to need to produce, either we need to have close to the customer, being on time-based, competitive trade agreement and shipping cost, or need to be appropriate labors or workplaces where People are there, people are available, advantages of low wages, low cost, and high technical, that needs to be taken into consideration. So one which is near to the customer. Next, of manpower which needs to be taken care of it. Third would be the availability of resources and is there. So proximity to customers is one of the issues that we need to go around it. The business climate, how friendly the employees are, how friendly the federal government is, how tax efficient the business sets out to be. This is all which needs to be included in the total cost. Then comes the infrastructure. Yes, if the infrastructure available. Now, what are we talking about infrastructure? Infrastructure would be a public infrastructure. Let's say I am producing steel or cement, but there are no ample amount of roads or shipping or railway yards within the vicinity. So for me, it will be more costly to produce, more costly to transport the produced item. Will it not be? So you need to understand if there are infrastructure in place, if there are transportation in place, shipping industries in place, whether the shipyard is within the vicinity or the railway yard is within the vicinity. We need to understand the infrastructure thereby, and most importantly will be the quality of manpower that comes around it. Once the quality of manpower can be settled down, we need to come up with suppliers, the vendors who are going to be ad hoc, or should I mention that those who are going to be partners in the business altogether, who are going to work on a job shop level, and so on and so forth. Apart from this, there are other facilities that needs to be considered in terms of housing, in terms of educations of the children, of the workers, the managers working around it. Now, these are also the other facilities which might attract the right talent and help a company to retain the right talent out there. Without this, you just cannot go around it. So remember, issues in facility location are proximity to customers, business climate, total cost, infrastructure, quality of labor, suppliers, and other facilities as be. So what are we looking into it? There are other things that can be brought into it. One is FTZ or free trade zone, where the tax rates are absolutely less, or probably it is governed by the World Trade Councils altogether, wherein it adheres to the best practices that is available across the globe. Then we can have a political risk. Definitely, yes. If there are political upheaval in the country, it doesn't make sense for a business fellow or an entrepreneur to invest money. So there has to be a political risk-free zone that we need to wander around it. We need to work in countries which are much more stable. There might be a government barriers. The government barriers in the terms of excise duties, in terms of taxes, or in terms of import curves or export curves that might be put in, which can kind of limit your business ability, the ability to do business on the other line. Next is the trading block. Trading block happens when we see there is a trading block in terms of NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, as the case might be, or European Union as another glorifying example for trading block. Then we have the environmental regulation. Yes, environmental regulation is of utmost important. The United Nations is chartering that everything should be carried out in a fashion that is very sensitive and takes into consideration of the ecology and the environment, the flora and the fauna out there. Yes, we are looking at host community, the community where the plant has been located. Are they akin to the plant? Akin to the idea to the establishment of plants. For example, there might be many communities, many vicinity where people are not interested to establish a nuclear plant. Probably why? Because if things go wrong, if there's an accident, it can have a catastrophic effect on the vicinity per se. So how receptive is the host community? These are the issues that needs to be taken into consideration. The last but not the least is the competitive advantage. At the end of the day, keeping everything in mind, you should be cost effective. At the end of the day, you should have an edge over your competitors, and that is what are the issues of the plant location comes around it. Remember, apart from them, we have free trade zone, the political risks, the government barriers, the trading blocks, we have the environment regulations, host community, and competitive advantage plays a major role. I'll just give you one thing of late, right? What are we looking into it? Two refineries as such. What we are looking for two refineries. Let's say A and B, and how do we go across it? we are giving a major factors of the site location, point range from 0 to 330, 0 to 200, as in fuels, availability of fuels are concerned, power availability is concerned, labor. Now, how do we change living condition, transportation, water supply, climate support, and the tax policies? The tax policies have been rated. Now, these are the point range which has been given to you, and look how they have been judged for two sides. Let's say alpha and beta, one by one. The alpha, it says the fuel sizes they have been putting it, and we total it out, it comes around 528, absolutely 528 as far as things are concerned. And for the side beta, if we total it out, it is 558. Now, what are this coming around it? The question is the weightage that we have given as far as tax policies are concerned, the fuels in the regions, what are we looking out at? The more the point weightage, I suppose side B wins hands down, because there is a difference of 30 points out here, absolutely 30 points, right? Now, how do we go across it? This is one method of determining what are the factors, what are the plant location methodology can be utilized it. So side B is the best, might be. Similarly, solve transportation method of linear programming. It states to seek the minimum cost of shipping n number of units, m number of destination. N number of units means number of units of your produce, and m number of destination might be your retail outlets that goes around it, or to the cities or the countries that we are looking into it. So n numbers of unit to n numbers of destination. The shipping n units to M destination is your transportation problem. Now, this is how much money that we are going to spend across it. This is what we are looking all together. So, location of the center of gravity method, we come forward quickly, is used to locate single facility that considers existing facility, distance between them, and the volumes of goods to be transportation. Right? Now, this is what we are looking forward across all the time. Every time as of this moment, we need to understand the distance between. So there is single facility, and then we will have the other satellite facility that comes around it. From here, what are the distance that comes around it, and what will be the places that needs to be taken into consideration. The methodology involves formulas used to compute the coordinates of two-dimensional points. That means the distance and the volume criteria stated as above. And probably the plant location is what we are looking around here. Look at here, the center of gravity has been depicted out here. Coordinate of center of gravity is depicted out here. So coordinate of center of gravity x and coordinate of center of gravity y. Now there are two sides A and B, right, or alpha and beta as the case might be. So coordinate with the ith position, n numbers of position, on y coordinate of the ith position, as in the y coordinate, the B location, and the volume of goods that needs to be transportation. This is a simple statistical formula that we keep on all together. Now, if you look into it, the simple pictorial representation is mentioned out here. For A, it is 100 and 200, X and Y. If you go to the previous thing, D, it is 250 and 580, and 790 and 80. So where should I have a location? Can we have a location of the facility out here? Should we have it out here, or should we have it out here? So that it becomes easier, the cost of transportation becomes the cheapest one. Then there is the showroom that goes around it, number of mobiles that has been sold, 1,250 from showroom A. From showroom D, 1900 mobiles. From showroom Q is 2300 mobiles that comes around it. Now, this is a good example of a center of gravity method. Now, where do I set my position, right? What do we go? What is the best location for the new Z Mobile warehouse or temporary storage facility that can be, as I've already stated around here. To begin it, we must try to exist. We probably find out the dimensional grid and determine their coordinates, which I have already stated so. And accordingly, you have to have that volume of information. How much A is selling, how much B is selling, and how much Q is selling. 2300, 1220, 1250, and approximately 1900 by D as a unit sold. Now, this is what we are looking as such, right? Once we have come to this thing, we should be able to come to the coordinate using the formula. You look at the formula, this is what we are looking out here. 1000 into 1250 plus 250 to 1900 and the volume thereby. We add it up, it is 443. It's somewhere down out here, we will be setting it the plant. So that is what we go for. CY, it is again the similar things, absolutely similar, but we on the the different volume that comes around here. In this case, the Y volume comes around and calculate and determine the location of the plant thereby. Now this method is known as center of gravity method. With this, the new location comes around as this one which been given. The Z is the new location that comes around. I hope with this we understand how to locate a plant, where to determine a plant. I'm just giving a brief introduction to it. If you want to Google it out or want to check it out, please refer back to me. We will have a wonderful discussion in due course of time. Thank you for watching this video. Have a wonderful time. I hope everything is clear, right? We have decided upon the plant location and the plant layout, facility location and the layout. What are the layouts which are most prominent? What are the factors to be kept in mind? And the location thereabout, how to come or arrive onto a decision. Thank you very much for watching this video.